Have you ever met someone who could twist every situation until you felt like the problem? You try to stay kind, patient, but somehow you always end up explaining yourself, apologizing for things you didn't do. Drained by invisible battles you never agreed to fight. That's how manipulators work. They don't always yell. They whisper. They smile. They study your empathy, your softness, your willingness to care, and they weaponize it. But what if I told you there's a way to end their power without confrontation, without chaos, just by mastering yourself? That's where Stoicism enters. The ancient philosophy that forged emperors and warriors has one timeless lesson. Control yourself, and no one else can control you. In this video, we'll uncover the hidden art of Stoic boundaries for toxic people. 7 timeless rules that expose manipulator tactics, silence narcissists, and teach you how to set emotional boundaries without losing your peace. These aren't ordinary boundaries. They are boundaries that stop manipulation, forged from reason, calm, and inner strength. The kind that make toxic people uncomfortable because you've stopped feeding their chaos. You'll learn why the Stoics never chased approval, how they stayed composed around deceit, and how their quiet strength became unbreakable armor in a noisy world. If you've ever been drained by manipulators or struggled with setting boundaries, stay with me. Because once you understand these 7 Stoic boundaries, you'll never explain yourself to a manipulator again. Before we begin, I want you to remember this. The moment you start explaining yourself to a manipulator, you've already stepped onto their stage. They nod while you talk, but they're not listening. They're watching, studying your tone, your insecurities, your eagerness to be understood. Because every word you offer becomes a weapon they can use later. That's the hidden truth about toxic people. They don't argue to find truth. They argue to gain control. And that's why the first Stoic boundary is simple, but brutally powerful. Never explain yourself twice. This is the foundation of setting emotional boundaries through Stoicism. The ability to stay centered even when someone tries to drag you into confusion. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, once said, "If you seek truth, do not argue with the ignorant." The Stoic doesn't chase validation because he understands that truth does not multiply through repetition. Once spoken clearly, it stands on its own. The more you explain, the weaker your position becomes. Not because your truth changes, but because your peace does. When you repeat yourself to a narcissist or manipulator, you're not clarifying, you're performing. You're trying to earn understanding from someone who profits from misunderstanding you. That's exactly how manipulator tactics work. They create endless loops, circular conversations where logic dies and emotion takes over. You begin to doubt your memory, your tone, even your intentions, and that's how they win. Stoicism offers a different path. Instead of arguing, the Stoic holds steady. He says his truth once, calmly, firmly, without emotion, and then retreats into silence. Silence in Stoic philosophy isn't weakness. It's authority. It's a form of emotional armor, one that toxic people can't penetrate. Think about it. What happens when you refuse to argue? When you don't justify, defend, or plead? The manipulator loses oxygen. Their tactics collapse. Because without your reaction, they have nothing to feed on. Never explain yourself twice. It's more than a rule. It's a shield. It's the first step in building Stoic boundaries for toxic people. Boundaries that stop manipulation before it begins. When you practice this, something changes inside you. You start valuing your words, your time, your peace. You begin to understand that not everyone deserves your explanation, because Not everyone argues in good faith. Setting boundaries isn't about controlling others. It's about teaching yourself that silence can be stronger than defense. The next time someone demands that you explain your choices again, don't. Let them sit in their confusion. You've already said your truth once. That's enough, and that quiet confidence is what makes manipulators fear you. Boundary 2. Walk away from circular arguments. Sometimes the smartest thing you can say is nothing at all, because when you argue with manipulators, you don't just lose peace, you lose yourself in their illusion. Here's the thing about toxic people. They don't argue to reach understanding. They argue to confuse, exhaust, and control. It's one of the oldest manipulator tactics, the circular argument. They twist your logic, ignore your points, and circle back to the same question you already answered. Not because they missed it, but because they want to keep you explaining, defending, and doubting yourself. And before you know it, you're caught, emotionally drained, trapped in the cycle of reaction. In Stoicism, peace is power. Epictetus said, "It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Meaning, it's not the argument that hurts you, it's your decision to keep engaging with it. When you learn how to set boundaries through Stoic discipline, you start to see arguments for what they are, not invitations, but traps. Setting emotional boundaries doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it means quietly withdrawing your attention. The currency manipulators crave most. Walk away, not with anger, not with drama, just a calm silence that says, "This no longer deserves my energy." That silence terrifies toxic people because they lose their grip the moment you refuse to play their game. Think of Stoicism as an art of emotional minimalism. Say less, feel deeper, and act only from reason. A Stoic doesn't explain his truth 100 times. He speaks once, then moves in alignment with it. Setting boundaries in this way creates what philosophers call tranquil authority, the power that comes from stillness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." When you walk away from circular arguments, you're not being rude, you're being wise. You're acknowledging that your peace has more value than being right in someone else's chaos. Narcissists and manipulators thrive in reaction. The Stoic thrives in calm. That's why Stoic boundaries for toxic people are so effective, because they shift the battlefield from emotions to discipline. The moment you stop fighting for understanding, they lose their control. The more you walk away, the smaller their voice becomes. Boundaries that stop manipulation are built in silence, not shouting. And the beauty of Stoicism is this: you don't need to convince anyone to respect your peace. You simply live it, protect it, and walk away from anything that threatens it. So the next time you feel that endless loop forming, pause, breathe, and remember, walking away isn't surrender. It's self-respect in motion, because true power doesn't argue. It walks away and never looks back. Boundary 3. Refuse to react. Choose stillness. There's a moment, right before you react, when time slows down. You feel the pull to defend, to lash out, to prove your point. That's the exact moment where manipulators win, if you move too quickly, because toxic people don't need to control your life, to own your peace. They only need to control your reactions. Every outburst becomes data. Every sigh, every tone shift, every frustrated word. They read it all. They memorize your triggers and file them away for later. That's how manipulator tactics work. They train you to react while pretending you're the one losing control. But here's the truth. The power is never in the reaction. It's in the stillness that follows it. In Stoicism philosophy, emotions are not enemies. They're signals. The Stoics never sought to be emotionless. They sought mastery over emotion. Seneca once said, "He who angers you conquers you." And that line reveals the entire psychology of setting emotional boundaries through Stoicism. When a narcissist tries to provoke you, they're not just testing your patience, they're testing your peace. The more you react, the more control you give. But when you remain still, calm, centered, unmoved, the manipulator's game collapses because toxic people can't thrive in silence. They feed on reaction, on chaos, on your need to explain and defend. But when your response is stillness, they're left with nothing to twist, nothing to mirror, nothing to consume. Imagine standing in front of someone yelling, trying to trigger you, and you just breathe. Not because you're weak, but because you've risen above the noise. That is Stoic power. It's not the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of it. It's being the calm in someone else's storm. Stoic boundaries for toxic people aren't built from aggression. They're built from inner peace so strong it cannot be stolen. Refusing to react isn't passive, it's strategic. It tells the world, I control me. And when you control yourself, you take away the only leverage a manipulator ever had. Boundaries that stop manipulation begin in the silence between stimulus and response. It's there, in that quiet space, that Stoicism lives. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Feel the urge to react and then let it pass. Because the moment you do, you reclaim your peace. Setting emotional boundaries through Stoicism is not about fighting back. It's about standing so still that manipulation can't find its mark. That stillness is your shield. That calm is your weapon. And that silence, that sacred silence, is what makes manipulators fear you most. Boundary 4. Do not negotiate self-respect. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that kindness means tolerance, that to love someone is to let them cross lines, test patience and stretch your limits. But Stoicism teaches something different. It reminds you that peace without self-respect is not peace at all. It's quiet self-abandonment. Toxic people sense this weakness, like wolves smell fear. They don't attack with violence, they test with charm. They start small, a backhanded compliment, a joke that stings, a favor that feels more like a debt. And when you don't push back, they push further. Because in their mind, silence equals permission. You can forgive without allowing re-entry. You can care without collapsing your standards. You can love and still say no. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's the Stoic's compass, a truth so steady that no emotional manipulation can twist it. When you live by that principle, your no becomes sacred. It stops being an argument and starts being a statement of worth. Every time you explain why you deserve respect, you're already trying to convince someone who benefits from disrespecting you. And the Stoic knows that is a battle lost before it begins. You cannot teach self-respect to those who've never learned respect itself. So instead you embody it, quietly, consistently. Toxic people thrive where boundaries blur. They mistake empathy for access. But when you hold your line, calmly, without anger, you remind them that peace and weakness are not the same thing. Self-respect is not arrogance. It's order. It's the invisible structure that allows peace to exist. Stoicism is not about pride. it's about principle. The Stoic doesn't shout his value, he lives it. He doesn't beg to be respected. He acts in ways that make disrespect impossible. When someone disrespects your time, your values, or your peace, step back, not forward. Distance isn't punishment, it's protection. Because once you start negotiating your self-respect, you're telling the world it's for sale. And nothing sacred should ever be for sale. So hold your line. Speak less, stand firm. You're not here to convince toxic people to treat you well. You're here to show them that their access ends where your standards begin. That's not cold. That's clarity. And that's what Stoicism calls strength. Boundary 5. Set emotional distance, not walls. Not every person who hurts you deserves to be hated. And not every wound requires a wall. There's a quiet wisdom in Stoicism, the understanding that emotional detachment is not the absence of love, but the presence of clarity. Walls are built from fear, distance is built from understanding. Walls close you off from everyone. Distance protects you from the wrong ones. Toxic people will tell you that distance means you don't care, but that's not true. It means you care enough about your peace to protect it. Seneca once wrote, "A wise man is self-sufficient, but he still desires friends." He understood that solitude is strength, but connection is still part of our nature. The Stoic doesn't isolate, he simply filters. When you set emotional distance, you stop handing your peace to people who haven't earned it. You learn to love in balance, to give without losing yourself, to forgive without reopening the wound. It's not coldness, it's control. Imagine your emotions as a quiet lake. Every time someone's chaos enters, ripples form. Distortion replaces reflection. Distance is stepping back from the ripples until the water clears again. That's the power of Stoicism. It allows you to remain present without being consumed. Boundaries are not punishments. They are instructions for peace. They say, I can love you and still not tolerate your chaos. They say, I can listen but I don't have to absorb. When you learn to set distance instead of walls, you keep your compassion but remove the dependency. You stop confusing empathy with endurance. You no longer measure love by how much pain you can tolerate. Toxic people will feel the shift. They'll accuse you of changing, becoming distant, even selfish. But what they're really feeling is the loss of control. Because your silence, your calm, your refusal to react, that's the moment they realize they no longer own your emotions. Distance gives you perspective. It allows you to see manipulation clearly, to hear tone without taking it personally, to recognize when peace is no longer mutual. Stoicism teaches you to remain warm but not flammable, kind but unshakable. And when you reach that point, your heart no longer needs armor. It simply knows its limits, so don't build walls. Build understanding. Don't withdraw from love. Withdraw from chaos. Because real strength isn't about shutting people out. It's about knowing exactly who gets to come in. Boundary 6. Stop trying to be understood. One of the quietest traps toxic people set is the demand for understanding. They twist your words, reinterpret your intentions, and wait for the moment you'll beg to be understood. But here's the truth. Stoicism teaches that clarity does not require permission. Your values, your choices, your peace, they exist independently of anyone else's comprehension. Trying to make a manipulator see your perspective is like trying to stop the tide with your hands. It drains energy, fosters frustration, and gives control to someone who profits from confusion. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that the opinions of others are outside our control. The Stoic focuses only on what is within his power, his own mind, his own actions and his own peace. When you stop explaining, defending and pleading, something remarkable happens. You reclaim your energy. You stop feeding the manipulator's game. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's ability to grasp it. Boundaries are not about making others agree with you. They are about teaching yourself that your peace matters more than approval. So, the next time a toxic person tries to force you into endless justification, pause, breathe, let silence do the work, because understanding is not a debt you owe. Your calm, your clarity, your inner strength, that is enough. And in that quiet refusal to be understood, the manipulator loses their power. You become untouchable not through argument, but through unshakable stoicism. Boundary 7, guard your energy like it's sacred. Every word you speak, every thought you dwell on, every reaction you give, these are all forms of energy. And energy once spent cannot be reclaimed. Toxic people and manipulators know this. It's why their manipulators' tactics are so effective. They don't always attack directly. Sometimes they chip away at you slowly, demanding explanations, provoking reactions, testing your patience. Every response you give feeds the cycle. Every moment of doubt or anger strengthens their control. Stoicism teaches us that the mind is the most precious territory we have. The Stoic doesn't give it away lightly. He understands that peace is not negotiable and that attention is a currency manipulators are desperate to spend. When you learn how to set boundaries, real emotional boundaries, narcissist boundaries, Stoic boundaries for toxic people, you begin to protect your energy proactively. You stop reacting to provocation. You stop arguing in loops. You stop giving away your calm in the name of being understood. Setting boundaries isn't about shutting people out. It's about teaching yourself that your mental and emotional space is non-negotiable. Every time you engage in unnecessary conflict, you are trading your peace for someone else's chaos. And that trade is always losing. A Stoic doesn't just create rules for others. He builds habits for himself. He surrounds himself with clarity, minimizes unnecessary entanglements, and knows when to walk away. These boundaries that stop manipulation are not punishments, they are shields. They communicate without words that your energy is not theirs to take. Manipulators and toxic people will test your limits. They will push, prod, and provoke. And that is why mastering setting emotional boundaries, Stoicism, is transformative. Every moment you refuse to engage in their games is a victory. Every time you prioritize your energy, you reclaim power they never had. Remember, you cannot control their actions, only your response. Protect your peace as fiercely as you would a treasure. Choose your battles. Choose your words. Choose your presence. Your energy is sacred. Your mind is untouchable. Your calm is your fortress. And when you live by this principle, manipulators lose their power. They can no longer drain, twist, or control you. They are left powerless in the presence of someone who understands the Stoic truth. Peace cannot be stolen. It can only be surrendered voluntarily, because energy, once guarded, becomes invincible. And a person who protects their energy is a person no manipulator can ever touch. These 7 Stoic boundaries for toxic people are not just rules. They are a way to reclaim your life from manipulators and regain control over your mind and energy. By refusing to explain yourself twice, walking away from circular arguments, choosing stillness, not negotiating self-respect, setting emotional distance, stopping the need to be understood, and guarding your energy like it's sacred, you create boundaries that stop manipulation. Every step is a lesson in Stoicism, teaching you that peace is not granted by others, but cultivated within. Setting boundaries isn't about anger or control. It's about self-respect, clarity, and emotional mastery. When you apply these principles, toxic people lose their power. Manipulators can no longer twist, drain, or dictate your reactions. You become untouchable, calm, confident, and unshakable. Remember